David discovers his wife Elena conspired with her mother, brother, and her boss Richard to ambush him with divorce papers on his birthday and strip him of his assets. Instead of reacting emotionally, David calmly signs the papers, having already legally transferred his business and assets beforehand. Elena and Richard lose everything when Richard's wife Catherine, a divorce attorney, exposes their affair. However, Catherine manipulates David into helping her frame Elena for money laundering, ultimately implicating David's own company in the scheme. My wife filmed my reaction. She had no idea what I'd done the night before. Silence is your greatest weapon, react with action, not emotion. The people planning your downfall always underestimate your intelligence. Revenge without boundaries will eventually consume the avenger. Trust is built in years and destroyed in secrets. My name is David Chen. I'm 38 years old, and for 8 years I believed I had everything, a thriving business, a loving wife, a real family. I was wrong about all of it. It started at Romano's, the restaurant where Elena and I had our first date. She slid a pink envelope across the table, divorce papers, pre-signed, pre-highlighted, while her brother quietly filmed my reaction. What did I actually know? That my wife had been cheating for 8 months. That my mother-in-law had been photographing my bank statements during family dinners. That they'd planned to leave me with nothing. Everything unraveled in 36 hours. And the woman who ultimately destroyed us all. Catherine Morrison. Richard's wife. A divorce attorney who walked into a bar one evening, ordered nothing, smiled politely, and burned 4 lives to the ground before sunrise. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I control movement and your end was always part of my route. The divorce papers were supposed to arrive next Tuesday. Instead, I found myself staring at a butterfly pink envelope on my 38th birthday, surrounded by the 3 people I thought I could trust most in this world. Happy birthday, David, my mother-in-law Vivian said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness as she handed me the envelope. Her perfectly manicured fingers adorned with rings worth more than most people's cars, trembled slightly. This is from all of us. I looked around the upscale restaurant, Romano's, where Elena and I had our first date 8 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. My wife sat across from me, her phone positioned perfectly to record my reaction. Her brother Tom smirked from beside her, adjusting his expensive watch like he was timing something. "What's this?" I asked, though I already knew. The weight of the envelope, the way Elena couldn't meet my eyes, the nervous energy radiating from Tom, it all clicked into place. "Just open it, honey," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. The pet name sounded foreign coming from her lips. When was the last time she'd called me that? 6 months ago. A year? I tore open the envelope with deliberate slowness, my hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Inside were divorce papers already filled out with sticky notes marking where I needed to sign. Someone had even highlighted the sections about asset division in yellow. The restaurant buzzed around us. Couples laughing, families celebrating, waiters rushing between tables with steaming plates. None of them knew they were witnessing an execution. "Well," Tom leaned forward, unable to contain his excitement. "What do you think?" I set the papers down carefully, reached into my jacket pocket, and pulled out the blank pen Elena had given me for our first anniversary. The one she'd said represented our future together. Smooth, elegant, and built to last. "Thank you," I said, my voice calm as I signed each page with practice efficiency. This is exactly what I needed. The confusion on their faces was priceless. Elena's phone nearly slipped from her hands. Vivian's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Tom's smirk faltered. I stood up, dropped $300 on the table, enough to cover the meal they'd ordered to celebrate my humiliation, and tucked the signed papers back into the pink envelope. "Happy birthday to me," I said, sliding the envelope across to Elena. "Enjoy your celebration." I walked out of Romano's with my head high, leaving behind 3 stunned faces and 8 years of marriage. The valet brought my truck around and I tipped him $50 because why not? It was my birthday after all. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of them through the restaurant window. Elena was frantically waving her hands. Vivian was clutching her chest dramatically, and Tom was on his phone, probably calling someone to figure out what had just happened. If only they knew what I'd done before dessert arrived. The discovery happened by accident, like most life-changing moments do. I'd come home early from the logistics company I'd built from nothing over the past decade, hoping to surprise Elena with dinner reservations for my birthday weekend. Instead, I got the surprise of my life. I heard voices coming from the living room. Elena's laugh and another woman's voice I recognized as Vivian's. I was about to announce myself when I heard my name. "David's such an idiot," Elena was saying. "He has no idea what's coming." I froze in the hallway, my keys still in my hand. "Half his assets, Elena," Vivian replied, her voice filled with satisfaction. "The business, the house, the investment accounts, everything. And Richard promises you Paris once this is all over." Richard, Elena's boss at the marketing firm where she'd been working for 3 years. The same Richard who'd been calling her at odd hours. The same Richard whose name kept popping up in her text notifications. "I can't wait to see his face when we serve him the papers." Elena continued. "Tom's going to film the whole thing. We'll have it for the divorce proceedings. Show how he reacted. Make him look unstable. Brilliant." Vivian cooped. "That boy never deserved you anyway. Blue-collar trash with delusions of grandeur. Richard can give you the life you actually deserve." I backed out of the house quietly, my mind racing. Blue-collar trash. 8 years of marriage. And that's what I was to them. I thought about all the family dinners where Vivian had smiled at me. All the times Tom had asked for business advice. All the nights Elena had fallen asleep in my arms. All of it had been a lie. I drove to Murphy's Bar, a dive on the south side where my old army buddy Malik had been tending bar for the past 5 years. The place smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams, which suited my mood perfectly. "You look like someone ran over your dog," Malik said, sliding a whiskey across the scarred wooden bar. "What's eating you?" I told him everything. The conversation I'd overheard, the months of Elena working late, the way she'd been distant and cold. Malik listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or refilling my glass. "So, what's the play?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But they want to ambush me on my birthday. They want to film my humiliation. Fine, let's give them a show they'll never forget." Malik grinned, the same expression he'd worn before we'd raided insurgent compounds in Middle East. "I'm listening. First, I need to know everything. Who's this Richard guy? How long has this been going on? What exactly are they planning?" "I know a guy," Malik said. "Private investigator owes me a favor. Give me 24 hours. The next morning, Malik called with information that made my skin crawl and my resolve crystallize. Richard Morrison, 45, married with 2 kids, senior partner at Morrison & Associates Marketing. He'd been having an affair with Elena for 8 months. They'd been to hotels, weekend getaways, and had even booked a trip to Paris for the week after my birthday, complete with reservations at some exclusive adult resort. But the real kicker, Richard was already married to a high-powered divorce attorney named Catherine Morrison. The same Catherine Morrison who'd made headlines last year for taking a cheating tech CEO to the cleaners in what the newspapers called the divorce of the decade. "There's more," Malik said. "Your mother-in-law has been feeding them information about your business. Bank statements, investment accounts, property deeds. She's been photographing everything when she visits." "How's that possible?" "Turns out Tom works for a private investigation firm. Not a very good one, but they know how to dig up financial information. They've been building a case against you for months. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. They hadn't just planned to divorce me, they'd planned to destroy me. What do you want to do? Malik asked. I want to disappear, I said, legally, financially, completely, and then I want to watch their world burn. I spent the next 36 hours restructuring my entire life. The beauty of owning a logistics company is that you understand how to move things quickly and efficiently, including assets. My lawyer, Janet Pierce, had handled the incorporation of my business 5 years ago. She was sharp, discreet, and had no love for cheating spouses after her own messy divorce. You want to do what? She asked, raising an eyebrow as I sat in her office at 7 o'clock in the morning. Transfer controlling interest in the company to a trust with my niece as the primary beneficiary, I said. She's 25, has an MBA, and she's been working in the business for 2 years. Elena's never met her. She doesn't even know she exists. That's actually brilliant, Janet admitted. What about your other assets? Investment accounts get moved offshore legally. The house goes into the trust as well. I want to be worth exactly what I had when Elena and I got married. About $50,000 in a 10-year-old pickup truck. This is going to cost you less than a divorce would. Janet smiled. I like the way you think. Give me 24 hours. While Janet worked her magic, I made other preparations. I installed security cameras around the house, hidden ones that Elena would never notice. I copied every file from her laptop, every text message from her phone, every email from her accounts. The woman who'd called me blue-collar trash had made the classic white-collar mistake of assuming I was too stupid to understand technology. I also paid a visit to Richard Morrison's office. Morrison and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. Richard's corner office had a view of the river and probably cost more to furnish than most people made in a year. I dressed the part. Khakis, polo shirt, work boots, the uniform of someone who'd come to fix something. I'm here about the air conditioning, I told his secretary, showing her a fake work order Malik had printed up. Boss says there's been complaints about the temperature in Mr. Morrison's office. She waved me through without a second glance. Richard was on a conference call, his back to the door as he gestured at the view outside his window. He was exactly what I'd expected. Soft around the middle, expensive suit, the kind of guy who'd never worked with his hands a day in his life. I pretended to check the air vents while listening to his conversation. He was talking about a client presentation, his voice full of the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about real consequences. When he finished his call and turned around, I was standing by his desk. Who are you? He asked, startled. David Chen, I said, watching his face go white. Elena's husband. He opened his mouth to call for security, but I held up my hand. Relax, Richard. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to meet the man who's been screwing my wife. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. Sure you don't. I picked up a framed photo from his desk. Him with his wife and kids at some tropical resort. Nice family. Does Catherine know about your Paris plans? The color drained from his face completely. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice conversational. You're going to continue your affair with Elena. You're going to take that trip to Paris. You're going to do exactly what you planned to do. But understand this. I know everything. Every hotel, every lie, every text message, and when the time comes, I'm going to use all of it. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you, I said. See, you think you're playing chess, but you don't even know what game I'm playing. Enjoy Paris, Richard. I hear it's beautiful this time of year. I left him standing there, probably wondering if he should call the police, call Elena, or call his lawyer. It didn't matter. The seed was planted, and doubt is a powerful thing. That evening, I came home to find Elena cooking dinner, something she hadn't done in months. She was humming, actually humming as she moved around the kitchen. You're in a good mood, I observed. Just happy, she said, kissing my cheek. Work's been going really well lately. I'll bet it has, I thought. By the way, she continued, I thought we could go to Romano's for your birthday. You know, where we had our first date. It would be nice to have the family there. Mom and Tom want to celebrate with us. That sounds perfect, I said. I can't wait. The morning after my birthday dinner, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Elena was already gone, probably at Richard's place, trying to figure out what had gone wrong with their perfect plan. The messages were a mix of panic, anger, and confusion. Elena, we need to talk now. Tom, what the heck was that about? Call me. Vivian, David, this is unacceptable. You can't just sign papers and walk away. Elena again, you're being childish. We can work this out. And then around 3 o'clock in the morning, I know you're getting these messages. Stop ignoring me. I deleted them all and went to work. My logistics company, Chen Distribution, operated out of a warehouse complex on the industrial side of town, 47 employees, contracts with major retailers across the Midwest, and a reputation for getting things where they needed to go on time and intact. My assistant, Maria, looked surprised when I walked in at 7:30. You're early for a birthday, boy, she said. How was dinner last night? Enlightening, I replied. Is my niece in yet? Jessica? Yeah, she's in the office going over the quarterly reports. Jessica Chen was my brother's daughter, though most people assumed she was just another employee. She had her father's analytical mind and her mother's ruthless efficiency. I'd been grooming her to take over the business for 2 years, though I'd never told her why. Uncle David, she said when I knocked on her office door. Happy birthday. How was the family dinner? Memorable, I said, closing the door behind me. We need to talk. I explained everything. The divorce, the asset transfer, her new role as majority owner of the company. Jessica listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each detail. So Elena never knew about me, she asked finally. I kept my family separate from hers, I admitted. Your aunt always thought my side of the family was beneath her standards. And now I own 60% of a multi-million-dollar logistics company. Now you own 60% of a multi-million-dollar logistics company. I confirmed. Think you can handle it? Jessica smiled. The same predatory expression I'd seen on her face when she'd negotiated our last major contract. What do you need me to do? For now, nothing. Run the business like you have been. But if Elena or anyone from her family shows up here, you don't know me as anything other than an employee. What about when they find out about the asset transfers? That's when things get interesting. Around noon, Elena showed up at the warehouse. I watched through the security cameras as she marched through the loading dock in her designer heels and business suit, completely out of place among the forklifts and shipping containers. I need to speak with David Chen, she told Maria, her voice sharp with authority. He's in a meeting, Maria replied calmly. Can I take a message? I'm his wife. Get him now. I'll see if he's available. Maria buzzed my office and I told her to send Elena back. I wanted this conversation to happen where I had complete control. Elena stormed into my office like a hurricane, her face flushed with anger. What the heck do you think you're doing? She demanded. Working. I said, not looking up from my computer. You know that thing I do to pay for your lifestyle. Don't play games with me, David. You signed those papers, but you can't just disappear. We have assets to divide, arrangements to make. What assets? I asked innocently. The house, the business, your investment accounts. What about them? Elena stared at me like I'd grown a second head. They need to be divided according to the divorce settlement. I read the papers. I said, you get half of everything I owned when we got married. Congratulations. You're now entitled to $25,000 and half of a 10-year-old pickup truck. That's not what. She stopped, her face going pale. What did you do? I adapted. I said, you see, when someone spends 8 months planning to destroy your life, you have two choices. You can be a victim or you can be smarter than they are. Elena's hands were shaking now. The house belongs to a family trust. Your business. I'm just an employee now. The investment accounts. What investment accounts? She sank into the chair across from my desk, the reality of the situation finally hitting her. You can't do this, she whispered. I already did, I said. But don't worry, you and Richard will have a wonderful time in Paris. I hear the weather's perfect this time of year. The mention of Richard's name hit her like a physical blow. How did you know about your affair? Elena, I've known for months. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the way you started caring about your appearance again. Did you really think I was that stupid? Tears started streaming down her face, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no love. Just cold satisfaction. We can fix this, she said desperately. I'll end things with Richard. We can go to counseling, work things out. No, I said simply. We can't. You made your choice 8 months ago. You just didn't expect me to make mine. David, please. The papers are signed. Elena, you got exactly what you asked for. Now get out of my office. She left sobbing, her carefully planned ambush having backfired spectacularly. Through the security cameras, I watched her sit in her car for 20 minutes, probably calling Richard, probably calling her mother, probably trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Over the next week, I watched Elena's world begin to collapse with the same detached interest I'd once reserved for tracking shipments across the country. The first crack appeared when she tried to access our joint savings account and discovered it had been closed. Then she found out the house was no longer in our names. Then her credit cards, the ones tied to my accounts, were declined at her favorite boutique. Malik kept me updated on her movements through his network of bartenders, servers, and other service industry workers who formed the invisible intelligence network of any city. She's been at Morrison's office every day this week, he reported over drinks at Murphy's. My guy at the coffee shop across the street says she looks like heck. Richard's not taking her calls. Smart man, I said. He knows his wife could destroy him in a divorce. Speaking of which, Catherine Morrison's been asking questions about her husband's travel plans. I smiled. Has she now? Word is she hired a private investigator last month. Apparently, Richard's not as careful as he thinks he is. The second crack came when Tom showed up at the warehouse demanding to speak with me. Unlike Elena's emotional approach, Tom tried intimidation. You think you're clever? He said, pacing around my office like a caged animal. But we know what you did. Moving assets, hiding money. That's fraud. Is it? I asked. Because my lawyer says it's smart financial planning. We'll see what a judge says. By all means, take me to court, I said. I'm sure a judge will be very interested in hearing about how you and your family conspired to ambush me with divorce papers on my birthday. How you plan to film my reaction for use in legal proceedings. How your mother committed identity theft to access my financial information. Tom's face went white. I have recordings, Tom. Video, audio, documentation of everything. You want to play in court? Let's play. He left without another word. The third crack was the biggest one. Catherine Morrison filed for divorce from Richard, citing adultery and demanding an emergency injunction to freeze all of his assets. The local business journal ran the story on their front page, complete with photos of Richard and Elena leaving a downtown hotel. Elena called me that night hysterical. They fired me, she sobbed into the phone. The company fired me. They said I was a liability. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, though I wasn't sorry at all. Richard won't return my calls. His wife is threatening to sue me for alienation of affection. David, I need help. You need a lawyer, I said. A good one. They're expensive, though. I don't have money for a lawyer. You took everything. I took what was mine, I corrected. You wanted a divorce, Elena. This is what divorce looks like. I made a mistake, she whispered. I know that now. Can't we? I hung up on her. But Elena's family wasn't ready to give up. Vivian had spent 60 years getting her way through manipulation, guilt, and social pressure. She wasn't about to let her daughter's meal ticket disappear without a fight. She showed up at my apartment, the modest two-bedroom place I'd rented after moving out of the house, dressed in her finest jewelry and carrying herself like visiting royalty. David, she said when I opened the door. We need to talk. No, we don't, I replied, starting to close the door. She stuck her foot in the gap. Her face twisted with desperation disguised as indignation. You can't treat my daughter like this. Elena made a mistake, but she's family. Family forgives. Was I family when you called me blue-collar trash? I asked. Was I family when you helped plan my humiliation? I never said, I have recordings, Vivian, every word. She stepped back, her composure cracking. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to leave me alone, I said. All of you. Elena wanted a divorce. She got one. You wanted me out of your family. I'm out. Congratulations. You won. But Elena needs to learn that actions have consequences. I said something you should have taught her 36 years ago. I closed the door in her face and listened to her pound on it for 5 minutes before giving up. 2 weeks after my birthday dinner, I got a call from Malik. You need to get down here, he said. Now. I found him at Murphy's with a black eye and split lip, cleaning glasses behind the bar like nothing had happened. What the heck happened to you? I asked. Your brother-in-law and 2 of his friends decided to pay me a visit, Malik said. They wanted information about you. Where you're living, where you work, what your plans are. Rage flooded through me, hot and immediate. Are you okay? I've had worse, he said. But they made a mistake. What kind of mistake? Malik grinned, wincing as the expression pulled at his split lip. They didn't know about the security cameras or the fact that I still have friends from our army days or that attack is a felony. You called the police. I called someone better. He said, remember Martinez from our unit. He's a detective now. Tom and his buddies are going to have a very interesting conversation with him tomorrow morning. But that wasn't enough for me. Tom had crossed a line by involving Malik. And I was done playing defense. I spent the next day tracking down Tom's friends, the 2 men who'd helped him jump my best friend. It wasn't hard. Tom wasn't smart enough to hire professionals. These were just thugs he knew from whatever bar he'd been drinking at. I found them that evening at a pool hall on the north side celebrating their easy payday with cheap beer and cheaper whiskey. You boys have a good time last night? I asked, sliding onto a bar stool next to them. The bigger one, a guy with prison tattoos and missing teeth, looked me up and down. Do I know you? He asked. I'm the guy whose friend you beat up, I said calmly. Both men tensed, ready for a fight. What they didn't expect was the envelope I placed on the bar between us. What's that? The smaller one asked. Photos, I said. From the security cameras at Murphy's bar. Clear shots of your faces, the attack, everything. There's also a copy of the police report my friend filed this morning. They exchanged glances, suddenly less confident. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to call Tom and tell him the deal's off. You're going to disappear from this situation completely. And if I ever see either of you near my friend again, these photos go to every police department in the city along with your names and addresses. You can't prove nothing, the big one said, but his voice lacked conviction. Can't I? I pulled out my phone and showed them a crystal clear video of them entering Murphy's, following Tom inside, and emerging 10 minutes later while Tom counted out cash. Technology is amazing these days. They left without finishing their drinks. But Tom himself was a different problem. He was family, which meant Elena and Vivian would protect him no matter what he did. He was also stupid enough to escalate things if I didn't handle him properly. I didn't have to wait long for the opportunity. Tom showed up at my apartment building 2 nights later, drunk and belligerent, shouting in the parking lot about what he was going to do to me. I let him rant for 5 minutes, giving him enough rope to hang himself while I recorded everything from my balcony. Then I came downstairs. You done? I asked. Tom spun around, swaying slightly. You think you're so smart, he slurred. But I know things about you. I know where you work, where you live. I know how to hurt you. Like you hurt Malik. That was just a warning, Tom said. Next time. He swung at me, a wild drunken punch that I saw coming from a mile away. I sidestepped it easily, letting his momentum carry him past me. He stumbled, caught himself against a car, and turned around with homicide in his eyes. You want to do this here? I asked. In front of all these cameras, with all these witnesses? Tom looked around, suddenly aware that several neighbors had come out to watch the show. His bravado deflated slightly. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, I replied. Because if you ever threaten me or my friends again, I'll have you arrested for attack, harassment, and anything else I can think of, and then I'll sue you for everything you're worth, which admittedly isn't much. Tom left, but I knew he'd be back. Men like him always came back. I was right. 3 days later, Tom showed up at my workplace with Elena and Vivian in tow. They'd clearly planned this as their final attack, a coordinated attack designed to corner me and force me to negotiate. They made it past the loading dock because I let them. I wanted this confrontation to happen on my turf with my people watching, recorded by my cameras. David, Elena called out as they approached my office. We need to talk. I stepped out to meet them in the warehouse proper, surrounded by my employees with Jessica watching from the office above. What can I do for you folks? I asked politely. You can stop this childish behavior, Vivian snapped. Elena is your wife. You have responsibilities. Elena is my ex-wife, I corrected. As of 2 weeks ago, and my only responsibility is to myself. We know about your little shell game, Tom said. Moving assets, hiding money. That's illegal. Is it? I asked. Because the IRS seems to think everything I did was perfectly legal. So does my lawyer. So do the banks. You can't just walk away from 8 years of marriage, Elena said, her voice breaking. We built a life together. No, I said, I built a life. You lived in it while planning to destroy it. There's a difference. The warehouse had gone quiet around us. 47 employees had stopped what they were doing to watch the drama unfold. I could see some of them recording with their phones. David, Elena tried again. I know I made mistakes. You made choices. I interrupted. You chose to have an affair. You chose to plan an ambush divorce. You chose to call me blue-collar trash. You chose to try to take everything I worked for. These weren't mistakes, Elena. They were decisions. So, what happens now? She asked desperately. Now you live with the consequences of your choices, I said. Just like I'm living with mine. This isn't over, Tom said, stepping forward aggressively. Yes, it is, I replied. Because if any of you ever contact me again, if you ever show up at my workplace again, if you ever threaten my friends again, I'll make your lives very, very difficult. How? Vivian demanded. I smiled, the expression cold enough to make her step back. I'm a logistics expert, Vivian. I know how to move things. Information, money, people. I know how to track shipments across the country, how to coordinate complex operations, how to make sure things end up exactly where they need to be. Do you really want to find out what I can do when I put my mind to it? They left without another word, but I could see in their eyes that this was far from over. They'd regroup, make new plans, find new ways to attack me. I was counting on it. The end came 3 weeks later, but not the way any of us expected. I was at Murphy's with Malik, celebrating his recovery from the beating Tom's friends had given him when Catherine Morrison walked in. Richard's soon-to-be ex-wife was everything Elena wasn't. Confident, self-possessed, and absolutely ruthless. Mr. Chen, she said, approaching our table. I'm Catherine Morrison. I believe we have some mutual interest to discuss. Malik raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything as Catherine sat down. I know about your situation with your ex-wife and my husband, she continued. I also know about their little Paris adventure, which is scheduled for next week. Congratulations on your divorce, I said carefully. Catherine smiled, the expression sharp as a blade. Thank you. Richard's going to lose everything. Of course, the house, the business, custody of the children. I'm very good at what I do. I'm sure you are, but I have a proposition for you, she said. Something that might benefit us both. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photographs, bank records, hotel receipts, and a detailed timeline of Richard and Elena's affair. I've been documenting my husband's infidelity for months, Catherine explained. I have enough evidence to destroy him in court, but I want more than just a favorable divorce settlement. What do you want? I want him to suffer, she said simply. I want him to understand what it feels like to lose everything you've worked for, and I think you want the same thing for your ex-wife. She was right, of course. But I was curious about her angle. What are you proposing? Richard and Elena are leaving for Paris tomorrow night. Catherine said they think they're finally free to be together to start their new life. What they don't know is that I've already contacted the French authorities about Richard's tax evasion. He's been hiding assets in offshore accounts for years. That's between you and him. I said, true, but what if Elena were to be implicated as well? What if it appeared that she'd been helping him move money illegally? What if she were to be detained by French customs when they tried to return to the United States? The implications were staggering. Elena could face international fraud charges, extradition proceedings, years of legal battles she couldn't afford. That seems excessive, I said. Though part of me was intrigued. Does it? Catherine asked. Your ex-wife destroyed your marriage for money. She conspired with my husband to defraud you in a divorce settlement. She participated in moving assets to hidden accounts. From where I sit, she's as guilty as he is. Malik leaned forward. What exactly are you asking David to do? Nothing illegal, Catherine said. I just need some information. Elena's passport number, her travel itinerary, her phone records, things that would help the authorities build their case. I don't have access to that information. I lied. Catherine smiled. Of course you don't. But if you did, and if you were to share it with the appropriate authorities, Elena might find herself in a very difficult situation, one that would make your little asset protection scheme look like child's play. She stood up, leaving the envelope on the table. Think about it, Mr. Chen. But don't think too long. They leave tomorrow night. After she left, Malik and I sat in silence for several minutes. That woman is scary, he said finally. She's also right, I admitted. Elena did participate in Richard's schemes. She did try to defraud me. She did choose to destroy our marriage for money. So, what are you going to do? I thought about Elena's face when she'd handed me the divorce papers. The satisfaction in her voice when she'd called me blue-collar trash. The months of lies and deception that had led to that moment. "I'm going to give Catherine Morrison exactly what she wants," I said. The next evening, I sat in my apartment with a glass of whiskey and my laptop, watching the flight tracker on my screen. Air France Flight 447 to Charles de Gaulle Airport had just taken off from O'Hare, carrying Elena and Richard toward what they thought was their new beginning. What they didn't know was that French customs officials were waiting for them with arrest warrants, extradition requests, and evidence of international money laundering that would keep them tied up in legal proceedings for years. What they also didn't know was that Catherine Morrison had played us all. My phone rang around midnight. It was Jessica calling from the warehouse. "Uncle David," she said, her voice tight with concern. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where the FBI just showed up with a warrant to search our financial records." I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. "What are they looking for?" "Evidence of money laundering, asset concealment, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Jessica said, "They have documents showing that our company was used to move money for Richard Morrison's offshore accounts." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Catherine Morrison hadn't just wanted revenge on her husband and Elena. She'd wanted a scapegoat for Richard's crimes, someone to take the fall while she walked away clean. She'd played me perfectly. "Uncle David." Jessica's voice was small and scared. "What do we do?" I looked out my apartment window at the city lights, thinking about Elena and Richard sitting in a French jail cell, probably blaming each other for their situation. Thinking about Tom and Vivian, who would soon discover that their daughter was facing international criminal charges. Thinking about my business, my employees, my carefully constructed new life. Catherine Morrison had given me exactly what I'd wanted, the complete destruction of everyone who'd betrayed me. She'd just forgotten to mention that I'd be destroyed along with them. "Uncle David." "We call our lawyer," I said, "and we prepare for war." But as I hung up the phone, I found myself smiling. Elena had wanted to see what I looked like when I was truly angry. When I had nothing left to lose. She was about to find out.